Yes.
Be generous.
To be generous, yes. All right. All good things. I think those are all accurate, certainly. What does it mean to share? I'll read it. I don't know if you can read it. I was just fine with the concept of sharing my faith until the pastor said we actually had to talk to people. Just a cute little joke here. We're going to continue talking about sharing, and I have talk about some of the things you just mentioned in a moment. But this is another small section from Pope Benedict XVI Emeritus motu proprio on that initiated the Year of Faith. It says to rediscover the content of the faith that is professed, celebrated, lived, and prayed, and to reflect on the act of faith is a task that every believer must make his own, especially in the course of this year. Of course, he's referring to the Year of Faith. And what Pope Benedict is calling us to, and we're not off the hook because he's no longer Pope, because Pope Francis, of course, supports this Year of Faith and the whole concept, is that all of us are called to this kind of way to rediscover the content of the faith that is professed, okay, in the Creed. You know, that's why today, how many acts, we read the Act of Faith, we read the Creed, we read this other prayer for faith, celebrated, lived, and prayed. And to reflect on the act of faith is to take that the task that every believer must make his own. So we have to really be doing all those things. And of course the celebrating is primarily in the Eucharist and in the other sacraments of the Church. So the idea here really is that we can't share what we don't have, right? So you've probably heard that before. So we really have to focus, and what the Pope is calling us most to do is focus on knowing Christ ourselves during this year so that we can rekindle our own faith. And when we do that, we're naturally going to want to share it. We have to also push ourselves a little bit, though, in that sharing sometimes, like the cartoon said, you know, I'm afraid to talk to those people. And you know, the people you need to talk to, though, isn't your brother and sister Corsalista, but it's the person sitting next to you in the office, right, who doesn't understand what's wrong with contraception, what's wrong with gay marriage, and even more importantly, they don't understand what's right with the Church and what's right with the teaching of the Church, which we'll get to that in a moment. So, similar to the other slide I had about having an environment and actions for knowing, this is an environment for sharing. Now, as we said, or as I said, I think, well, Sister Mary said kind of the same thing, is that this is all integrated, you know, our life. We can't just separate these things. So the sharing and the knowing come together, but just to focus, I came up with these things. The environment for sharing, which comes out of our knowing really, is an environment of gratitude, joy, and compassion. You know, it doesn't do any good to share with somebody because we want to win an argument. That's useless, ineffective, and won't work anyway. So we want to share because we have compassion for that person. I know it just, frankly, sometimes I want to listen to the news or hear what commentators are saying or politicians are saying. Sometimes I just want to cry because I just feel how harmful that is to themselves, to their souls, and to the souls of other people. You know, and sometimes, of course, we don't know what to say in that situation. But we have to have that compassion and realize that, you know, the people who are out there, you know, doing the things, secular things in the world that we know are so harmful, they're killing themselves spiritually and emotionally, and in many cases even physically. Okay, actions for sharing. I think the first one is the one that we often forget, to listen. You're not going to be able to share with somebody else unless you listen, you know their story, you begin to understand where they're coming from, what their need is. I mean, we can't just go in like a bowl and say, I'm Catholic. You know, we got to go in and say, you know, oh, listen to their story. You know, what's your situation? Yes, that divorce must have been very painful. Yes, you know, I know what it must be like to have a child that's, you know, off doing the wrong things. We have to listen to people. And then, of course, we have to love. You cannot share the gospel with anyone you do not love. It cannot be done. That doesn't mean that we're madly in love with the person, but we have to pull in the depths of our heart that love for humanity and that love for that individual that Christ has for us before we share. Kindness. We have to share with real kindness. And we have to proclaim the truth as good news. This is getting at what I was referring to earlier about this idea we can't go beat people over the head, but we have to share the truth. But it's not so much that, oh, abortion is wrong because it's mortal sin. No, it's that, you know, we have another approach. We have an approach that leads to a fulfilling life. If you look at what Christ has taught us, you look at what the church has taught us about the beauty of the marriage, the beauty of the sexual relationship within the context of marriage, the beauty of the church teachings on a God who came and became wed to his church. That's how we have to proclaim the good news. Because everybody already has this idea outside the church, and unfortunately too many of us inside the church, that the church is about saying, no, you can't do this because it's wrong. Why? Because they want power. No, that's not it. The church isn't saying what's wrong. The church is saying what's right. We really have to start getting into the practice of telling people what's right. And I wish I had very specific words for that, because I struggle with it probably as much as you do. You know, trying to share that good news and trying to figure it out. But the first thing we have to do again is to really know, to really understand the teachings of the church. I think that was it. Yeah. So, questions about sharing and knowing, or anything related? Anything really related to anything we've covered so far today? No? Everybody's ready for their nap. Well, if not, I have some questions for sharing, and we'll pass those out. Maybe if I could get somebody to... As they're being passed out, I'll read the 2 questions that we have here for you to share on. What does it mean? What does it mean? Oops, I should say to you to know your faith. What does it mean to you to know your faith? And the second one, what is your experience of sharing your faith? And the sub-questions to that is, has it brought you joy? Has it brought you frustration? So you may want to, it may be more fun to focus on the second question than the first one, but it's up to you and your groups what you want to talk about, but these will maybe help you. So however you want to share, if it's too hot outside, you can stay here or whatever you want to do. Let's see. Mass is at 3, is that right? Is that 3? So we can take probably 20 minutes. So let's be back about 20 to 3. How's that? And then, because then we're going to have some group reporting and get ready for Mass. So is that right? 20 minutes would be 20 to 3, right? It's 20 after right now. Okay. All right, so 20 minutes.